Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are jumping into a really powerful way of thinking, a method for finding solid ground in the beautiful, messy, chaotic world of biology. It's a way to prove something is true, even when you don't have all the pieces of the puzzle. So, let's kick things off with a question that scientists wrestle with all the time. Imagine you're a detective. You show up at a crime scene and it's a mess. You definitely don't have all the facts, but you do know some basic rules, right? Like a person can't be in two places at once. So, how do you solve the case? Well, that's the core challenge we're going to unpack today. Okay, let's dive right in. The first thing you've got to get your head around is why biology is just so uniquely tricky to pin down with math. And you can really see the contrast here. On one side, you've got physics. It's built on what they call first principles. These are fundamental, rock-solid laws like gravity. The equations are clean, they're predictable. But then you have biology. It's this swirling storm of complexity, where the deep-down rules are often a total mystery. And because of that, trying to build one single mathematical model can feel like you're just, well, taking a wild guess. So, how in the world do scientists navigate all that uncertainty? Well, they use this really clever strategy called the axiomatic approach. The best way to think about it is you're not trying to find one single X on a treasure map. Instead, you're building a fence around the entire area where the treasure must be. And the whole thing starts with what we call axioms. Now, an axiom is just a fancy word for a ground rule. It's a constraint or an assumption that you just accept as true for whatever you're looking at. For instance, we might not know every single detail of how a virus copies itself, but we know one thing for sure: it has to have a host cell to do it. That rule, that's an axiom. The process itself is actually pretty simple and super logical. First, you lay down your ground rules. These are your axioms. Step 2, and this is the key part, instead of trying to pick one perfect model, you consider every single possible model that doesn't break your rules. Then, for step 3, you just look for the things that are true across all of them. See, if every single valid scenario leads you to the same conclusion, bam, you just found a universal truth. This quote right here absolutely nails the core idea. The goal isn't to build the one perfect model of reality, because that might be impossible. The goal is to find conclusions that are so tough, so robust, that they hold true for any model you can dream up, as long as it follows the rules. That is how you find certainty in the middle of chaos. All right, so that's the theory. But how does this actually work in the real world? Let's take a look at the battlegrounds inside our own bodies and how we use this to understand and fight disease. I mean, this is a total game changer for modeling things we can't just look at under a microscope. Take oncolytic virus therapy. That's where we use special viruses to hunt down and destroy cancer tumors. Researchers can set axioms like, okay, rule 1, the virus has to infect cancer cells more than healthy cells. And rule 2, our immune system can't wipe out the virus too fast. By building models that live within those rules, they can figure out which treatment strategies are going to have the best shot at success, even without knowing every last little molecular detail. It's pretty incredible. But believe it or not, this method goes way, way deeper than just fighting diseases. It lets us ask some really fundamental questions about the very architecture of life itself. And this right here, this represents a huge shift in perspective. To really get what's going on in a living system, you can't just study its parts one by one. A single gene here, a protein over there. You have to understand the logic of the entire system. It's kind of like the difference between studying a single gear versus understanding how a whole clock works. System logic is all about things like coordination and integration, how all the bits and pieces work together to keep the whole show on the road. And thinking this way has helped us explain unbelievably complex things, like how a protein folds into its perfect, precise shape, or how our bodies regulate enzymes. Which brings us to some of the biggest, most profound questions of all. Can we actually use this formal, rule-based approach to define what it even means for something to be alive? A central idea here is something called closure to efficient causation. Now, I know it sounds super complicated, but the concept is actually beautiful. It just means that a living thing is a system that builds and repairs itself using parts it makes. Itself. Think about it. A car doesn't do that. It gets built in a factory. But you do. You are a self-building, self-maintaining machine. But here is where things get absolutely mind-blowing. Scientists have actually translated this abstract idea into the super precise language of mathematics and computer science. And by doing that, they've shown that the core logic of life itself might just be computable, that it could be described by an algorithm. Now, this is a huge deal because it directly challenges this old idea that life has some kind of magic spark that's beyond computation. And that, of course, leads us right to the edge of science fiction. If we can capture the fundamental logic of a self-building system, could we one day model something as crazy complex as consciousness? Could we actually build a truly living system, not out of cells and water, but out of pure information running inside a computer? I mean, the theory opens the door. So, let's bring it all home. After all of this, what's the big takeaway? What's the crucial point to remember from this whole approach? The real power of axiomatic modeling, at the end of the day, is a shift in how you see the world. It tells us that you don't need to know everything to find the truth. You just need to know the rules of the game. By focusing on what's possible and what's impossible, we can uncover these deep, universal principles that govern life itself. It gives us a brand new, powerful lens to understand the beautiful, chaotic logic of it all.